Welcome to Friday Fish Facts. I'm your host, Ron DeSantis. We have got the fish pimp herself in the house today, Rachel O'Leary. I am so excited that she has agreed to come on today, and let's just all welcome Rachel. Rachel, welcome.
Well, thank you. You make me sound a bit like a diva. You just asked. I was happy to come on.
Well, you definitely haven't no diva tendencies. You're just such a big person in our industry that I was just super excited that you would say you would come on.
Oh, thanks for asking me. We'll have a good time.
I think we will. Okay, so we're going to kind of do our regular format that we have here, which is I'm going to go through some questions that I've got for Rachel, and we're also going to go through the chat, and we're going to answer everybody's, well, maybe not everybody's, but as many questions as we can, because we're going to try and do this for 1 hour and then let Rachel go. So we'll start right from the beginning. Rachel, how'd you get into fish keeping?
I had fish as a kid. Well, we had a living room aquarium, a 55-gallon, and each of the kids would get to choose fish for it. And over the years, it had many different manifestations. But I didn't really keep fish once I moved out of home until we started our family. And I really just wanted something that let me use my brain, that was mine, that gave me some sort of identity outside of just being a mom, because our kids are only a year apart, and it was a lot. So I got into fish, and first got into apple snails and dwarf frogs, and I got really interested in the genetics and the color traits of apple snails. So I started line breeding those, and that grew into wanting species of invertebrate that could be housed with them. And then that grew into wanting fish that could be housed with those, and it just sort of snowballed. And at one point, my husband gave me 3 10-gallon tanks, and my mom gave me $100, and they said, if this is something you think is really important to you, go for it.
And that's when you started, you got shrimp, right?
I got shrimp in 2004.
So you were one of the first.
Yes.
And I think you had another video come out where you were saying like it was much cheaper to buy it in bulk. So then you were buying a lot of them and then selling off the ones that you didn't have enough room for. And that's kind of how you got into selling fish. Is that right?
It wasn't cheaper. I live in a very rural area, and there was one really awesome store in the area. It was called Tony's, and he carried some small fish. But in the early 2000s, there weren't stores carrying small fish in them. I mean, other than live bears. So if I wanted these things, I had to bring them in. And when you want to import fish, you can't buy 20, you have to buy 600. Right. So I would bring them in and then clean them up, learn about them, write articles about them, and then sell off the extras so that I could afford to buy more species of fish or invertebrate.
That's funny that you mentioned that you'd write about them. We will get into a little bit of your writing history, but there's a question that popped up in the chat that I kind of want to get to right away. It's from Jason. He's Aquafunk with Angel Freak, and he says, women on YouTube are really hitting it hard and heavy and doing a good job. How does Rachel feel about the explosion of women doing big things?
I think it's about time. I mean, it's really about time, especially in this hobby. Because I know when I started going to conventions and clubs and things like that, the only other women there were wives who were there to do food stuff or like, you know, membership chair or organize things. But I know that wasn't like real, you know, because it's just not, it's not realistic. So it's been really exciting for me to see, especially over the past 10 years, just female presence being felt at events on YouTube, in clubs. There's still not a ton of published fish authors that are women, but it's getting better. And it's just really nice to see women doing well and putting themselves out there. I think the biggest obstacle is the objectification, which doesn't, I mean, the comment section is, it's bullshit, as my husband said. He's in the background there. It's really ridiculous, the things that people feel the need to comment on women's pages that they would never consider doing to a man.
Or in person.
Sorry, what was that?
He said, or in person.
Yeah, or in person, yeah. Well, people are tough when they're sitting behind a keyboard. You mentioned before about the writing. So you wrote for the AGA, and you wrote a book about nanofish, which is called the 101 best freshwater nano species. You wrote that in 2014, or it came out in 2014?
Yeah, I wrote it in a month.
You wrote it in a month?
Yeah.
Are you any more books coming?
I have 2 in my brain, one of which is mostly written but needs some formatting. That last book deal was kind of weird. Someone else was supposed to write that book. But
the guy that you co-wrote with?
No, I brought him on.
Oh, okay.
Someone else was supposed to write the book, and they wanted me to just write the invertebrate section, but I didn't like, I have to be careful what I say here. I didn't agree with the species necessarily that were chosen, or sort of the way they had the book laid out, and I didn't want to be part of a project that I didn't believe in.
Yeah.
So I said no, and they kept asking me, but there was no one else they could find to do it. So they ended up giving me the entire project, but the hook was I had a month until deadline. So I brought Mark Denaro on board, and he is someone who really helped me when I was starting. He used to let me add on to his orders so that I could get the fish I want. He was really just helpful and nice. So I brought him on, and we wrote it in a month. So I don't want to do things that way again at all. So
you kind of just take your time and plan it out and write something exactly how you want it.
Well, I have to determine if I want to self-publish or if I want to pursue being published again. That one was kind of nice because someone else had got to do all the editing. Someone else got to do all the layouts. They put out all the money to have it printed. I think I want to self-publish, but I just need to learn a bit more about it so that I can make sure I do a good job of it.
There's a question in the chat here, but I'm going to modify it a little bit. You're a very busy person. You've got a family, 2 kids. You travel around doing talks and things like that. You have almost been doing daily videos lately. You've got your own business to run. How do you find time to do everything?
Well, we drop our daughter off at school at 5:45 in the morning, so I start then.
Yeah.
And I go for as long as it takes.
You just don't sleep.
Sleeps for the week.
Another question in the chat here, is the Mohawk coming back in 2019?
Here's the thing about the Mohawk. It was much more exciting for everyone else to talk about than it was for me to talk about. And it got really, really tiresome when that was what all people wanted to talk about. And I would be at gas stations and people would be taking pictures of me, and you know, you can't fly with it up. I couldn't drive with it up because it was so long. It would hit the window, so it couldn't turn my head to use the side view mirrors. And not only that, but I have 3 rows of aquariums in my fish room. So I couldn't wear my hair up in the fish room and be able to work on the top row. So the only time I really wear it up or wore it up was when I was at events, or if I was shooting a video and took the time to put it up. It just, you know, I had that Mohawk for 15 years or something like that, maybe longer. And I'm 40. I wanted something a bit more manageable and maybe a little less talked about.
So you started doing YouTube seriously 3 years ago, last fall. I believe in your first month you hit 3,000 subscribers.
That is true.
How did you get off to such a boom right away, and how have you been able to maintain that rise all the way to 100,000 subs?
Well, I mean, I think it's obvious that the King of DIY's endorsement and influence really gave me that first initial push, and several throughout the years. But I really think there was just something missing, or maybe just because I really love to talk about what I talk about, it's done really well, and I've remained super consistent. The only time I've missed videos has been this summer when my family sort of took a nosedive, and just tried to stay like true to the content that I find interesting to talk about and try not to force it. And daily's been really challenging with that, but you know, I spend 6 hours a day in the fish room at least, so it's really not hard for me as I look around to think of things that I can just talk about.
How is your husband doing, by the way? He had the motorcycle accident that he's recovering from, right?
Yeah, he's still recovering. Unfortunately, he developed a lot of complications, including blood clots, which became life-threatening. So we're still managing that, and he's still working on range of motion and strength from all the broken bones, but getting there.
And your knee, how's that?
My knee's doing kind of awful.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's still have a lot of pain. They just renewed my handicapped plates. It's pretty frustrating. I'm hoping within 6 months I'll be singing a different tune.
I've just noticed Joseph has jumped into the chat here. JH Aquatics had quite the intimidating interview with you with his hashtag fishbound. That was a good one though. But how was the aquatic experience?
I mean, it was all right. It was nice meeting a lot of the other creators. That's something that I don't really get much opportunity to do. And I'm largely unaware of a lot of them because, as mentioned, I'm so busy. It's just not easy to sort of sit and search for people.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. But, you know, I go to so many events. I actually really prefer the smaller hobbyist events where you get to like sit down and hang out and eat with people, and like it's more personal. But it was a good show. It was a fun time.
I've got a question here from the Hawaiian Peacock, Mel. How's Mr. Grumpy Pants doing? Anything new with him? Love that guy.
Captain Cranky Pants is hanging in there. I mean, he really scared me. I have never seen a fish be as sick as he was come back like he has. So I'm really relieved. I mean, he was in. I was on the fence about euthanizing him every day for about 3 weeks, but he kept eating, even though he couldn't swim. He couldn't right himself, and he looked just horrible. He was still eating. So I figured as long as he's eating, there was a shot of saving him, and he's come around.
That's good. I'm just going to read a comment here from Terry Lindsay. Rachel, I've been watching your channel for several years, and I simply want to thank you for being such a giver in and for the hobby. We're indebted.
I appreciate that. That's why I do it. You know, Joey actually tried to convince me to do YouTube for months, and I was just not interested. You know, I was lecturing multiple times a month. I was writing for Amazonas Magazine, The Aquatic Gardener, you know, publishing on my blog. I was being paid to write for other blogs. And I was like, you know, I'm already like reaching this audience. And he's like, you don't understand how this works. There's like this massive amount of people that just are not involved in the organized hobby, and nobody buys magazines anymore. And I was like, oh, you know, my 40 is showing. Yeah, you're probably right. So, and that's how he really hooked me into giving it a shot. And, you know, it was really hard that first like 6 months, but it gets easier as time goes on.
I've got a question here from Jeremy's Wild Studio. Does your daughter still have the corn snake?
It's lost in my house still.
Is it really?
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna comment here from Liz, One Fish, Two Fish. Her highlight of AE for sure was meeting you.
Oh, that's sweet. Thanks. That's why I went. I wasn't really even planning on going to that event. And I was like, you know, I know a lot of those guys, a lot of the subscribers will be there.
Just My Fish Wayne, he's wondering if you get hassled a lot out in public just because people recognize you.
Not a lot. I always get recognized at the liquor store of all places, which I don't know what that says about my subscribers or me for that matter.
Well, when you're there every day.
Yeah, no, I'm not. But I do get recognized. I've had people at my daughter's dive meets come up to me. You know, it's strange as my channel has gotten bigger to how much I do get recognized. Although I get confused for pink just as much. So
when you hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, did you get the YouTube plaque?
No, in fact, I still haven't gotten the notification. I've reached out to YouTube several times, but I don't know.
Didn't they give you, wasn't there a check on your?
Oh, the verification badge. Yeah, that I did get.
You got that, but you never got the plaque. Well, they're slow. I've got a question from Long Island Fish Guy. What do you like better, fish or tattoos?
Well, that's not a very fair question. Probably fish, but fish, the tattoos are about me, and the fish is more about nature.
You and I briefly discussed like your schedule for 2019 and going. I'd asked you if you were going to AGA in May, which is in Seattle, but some folks are wondering if you're doing Aquashella later, like Dallas, Chicago.
Well, they reached out to me and said they'd love for me to be there, but it's not in their budget to finance the trip, and it's not in my budget to finance the trip. Traveling from where I live is an all-day process, no matter where I'm going, and I can't take that much time away from the fish room and my family to be able to do an event like that if it's on my dime, unfortunately.
Susie Q Aquatics wants to let you know that she was the one wearing the tinfoil hat. Captain 3654 is wondering, will you be doing anything in Pennsylvania soon?
I live in Pennsylvania. Actually, in September, what's it called? The Keystone Clash. They've asked me to lecture, but I haven't committed yet. I need to. It's my birthday weekend.
Oh, cool.
So, you know, I usually try not to do fish things on my birthday weekend, but we'll see.
Another thing we were kind of talking about before, and memberships to channels. Bob Steamfot's asking, can we be members on Rachel's channel?
Of course, Bob asked that because he's been hearing me complain that I don't have membership yet. I'm still ineligible. Apparently, I'll be in the next round of channels they make eligible, but as of yet, it is not something I'm able to do.
Ben just wanted to say hi.
Hi, Ben.
Where was I? Sorry, I just got distracted there for 1 second. What's your favorite all-time tank you've ever owned, size-wise, and what did you like about it? Lisa's Fishbowl's asking.
Well, the favorite tank that I have is my 150-gallon Hillstream aquarium, and it's not because of the dimension of the tank, though having a nice big one is really nice. It's just how well that tank has matured over the years and how exciting it is to keep and how much fun it is to watch. You know, it's really my favorite. I don't know if I have a favorite aquarium size though, because I like all of them for different reasons. Bigger is always better in my mind.
I was going to ask you about, because you're mentioning like kind of some problems with YouTube. About a year ago, I'm trying to figure this one out. You had a problem with a video, and I think because you said breeding that YouTube had demonetized it. Did you get that sorted out?
Every video I put out for months was demonetized or limited ads, and I would win all of them and they would reinstate the ads, but it would always take 3 days. So it was after the peak watch time. It was just during that whole thing where they were having issues with whatever that was, with advertisers and whatnot. I don't know why my channel got hit so hard, because I mean, it's pretty family friendly, but it sure did.
So let's talk about a little bit about your selling fish. Well, actually, let's ask a current question. When are you going to start shipping fish again? Because are you off for the cold months?
Well, I can't carry boxes out of my fish room with my knee. So as soon as I'm able to physically, I will. I've done a few orders here and there, but it really takes a lot out of me. So until I can do it without it being a sacrifice to the rest of my day or the next day, I just have to wait.
You import fish and sell them, but you also breed some fish and sell them. You breed ancestris, you breed shrimp, you breed Apistogramma cockatoides, right?
I breed a lot of fish. I breed small danios. I breed some of the small barbs.
What barbs do you breed?
In the past, I've worked with Barbus J and Holstertii, cherry barbs.
Yeah.
J barbs I bred. Well,
we've got a question from Rob93 who's wondering, what's your all-time favorite fish to breed?
Oh, wow, that's a hard question. If I could generalize it and say cichlids, just because I think cichlids have really, really fascinating parental strategies, and it's hard to pick just one because there's so many different strategies, but in general, as a family of fish, cichlids, just because there's something really special about watching them defend a nest or guard their young or sort of raise them up to a certain point. I just think it's really, really interesting.
I think that's one of the reasons that's drawn me to your channel, because I love Apistogrammes as well. I got a question from Robert Steamfot. Who is Rachel's favorite YouTuber named Bob?
Bob Steamfot, of course.
There you go, Bob. Okay, I just want to say thank you to all the mods that are in here right now. Let's take a quick second here. Like, we've got Hawaiian Peacock and Aquafunk and Rob93 and constantly suggesting to people to hit the like and all that stuff. I just want to say that I really appreciate you guys. You guys are here every week, and thanks very much. And thank you, 54 Punchy, as well. I didn't mention you. I know I normally go into the chat and say hello to everybody who's here, but there's so many people here, which I really, really appreciate. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get in and say hi to everyone, but if there's questions popping up here, I am definitely going to try and get to that. So you did have you had an interview with a couple of guys that started the Go Wild Peru group.
Yeah.
That might have been 2 years ago.
It was a while ago.
Yeah. Have you been to Peru? And if not, would you consider going?
I have not. I have not done any collecting trips, and that's mainly because my knee was so bad. I didn't have the stability to walk on uneven surfaces, and the idea of like face planting into questionable water that I don't know what was in did not sound like a good time. That being said, I do have the stability in my knee now, and as soon as like life settles down a bit, I would really like to do that.
Right on. Sorry, I was going through the chat as you were answering that question. Lost myself there.
You know, I've talked to the Go Wild Peru guys. Well, now I think it's mainly Ian at this point, a bunch of times about organizing a trip. And what I would really like to do is take my whole family to do something like that. Because for me, the collecting trip would be about way more than the fish. It'd be about all the biodiversity and just sort of, you know, the environment there. I'm really interested in learning more about the habitats and the culture. So I think it would be really awesome. I want to go everywhere. It's just one place at a time. So we're working on it.
I got a question here from mhow9. He's got like 40 tanks in his house, but what are your future fish breeding projects?
Well, I really want to get those Lake Tanganyikan cichlids that I got to maturity and start breeding them, the Parasiprochromis specifically.
Yeah.
I really, really like them. Otherwise, I'm not sure. I'd like to get in some more Parasperminus, some of the licorice gouramis to work with. I'd like to get in more of the wild bettas to work with. I want to get a lot more Apistogrammas, some of the more interesting and unusual wild species. You know, I go through sort of phases with my fish keeping. I'm always a catfish hoarder for some reason. I just have this really big affinity for gray and brown fish that hide, and I'm not entirely sure why. So I'd like to work with a lot more of those. So it's hard to say. I feel like I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of all the fish that I'd really like to work with.
Have you ever bred Petricolas?
I have I have Lucipennis.
Not the Synodonus Petricolas?
Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever tried those ones?
I have the Lucipennis, which are basically the same thing, just a little smaller. Right. And they haven't bred for me yet. I did breed Petricolas because I had Petricolas before. I did the 2 clay pot with the marble dish in it. Yeah. And they bred in there. I forgot about those. That's been years.
I think Joseph is offering to carry your buckets for you if you do decide to go down to Peru.
It would be a fun one to go collecting with.
Yeah, for sure. I got another question from Jeremy. What's your favorite YouTuber, non-fish or animal related?
Oh, geez. Let me look at who I'm subscribed to right now. I watch a lot of YouTube. I don't know. Really don't know who my favorite is. I watch all kinds of weird different stuff. I've been on this like kick lately where I'm watching these camping channels, and I have no idea why, because I haven't been camping in like 15 years.
No, that's because your kids are older.
I don't know what's going on, but I love watching these people go out and like build survival shelters and go fishing and cook on fire. I don't know why.
And Rachel, if you see some questions in the chat that you want to answer, feel free to jump in. and go ahead.
And I love watching stuff as well, like Philip DeFranco, the news shows. You know, I watch all the stuff that hits the trending tab. I'm not, you know, that picky really. Where's the chat? There it is.
We've got
If I had a Christmas tree themed tank, what fish would I choose? That's a fun question because I did a Christmas tree themed tank last year.
Yeah.
And I did cherry shrimp because they're red. But for fish, I mean, probably something with maybe, I mean, a betta would be great because they have those sort of fins that would flare out and be beard-like. You can get like the little ceramic ornaments at the art store to really decorate things up. I can't find where I stashed mine to adjust Sid's tank this year.
Got a question from Dan Slee here. Being another invert person, Rachel, for clear water tanks, what botanicals do you like using for biofilm other than Chola? Thank you in advance.
I like using, well, for clear water.
Yeah.
I use a lot of leaf litter, honestly, even though it does stay in the water. But there's a lot of really cool pods that you can get that are really dense and thick and grow some great biofilm, which is awesome for shrimp to eat. I do have some future videos specifically on that topic planned. I just rescaped the tank to add some botanicals too. I just have to get them in. So that is content that I will be putting out soon with specifics for you guys.
Here's another kind of a easy question for you. What's your favorite fish?
Polypterus endlecari, my big saddled bikers. I love those guys. I absolutely just think that they are the neatest things ever. They're fascinating to watch. They're fascinating to feed. They're gentle giants, and they just look really cool.
You're into the Corridoras as well. What's your favorite Corridora?
It's so hard for me to say favorites because I like so many different things for so many different reasons. Pardon the sirens. It's weird. We live in the middle of nowhere, but there's a whole bunch of fire trucks right there. For dwarf quarries, you know, there's Histatus pygmaeus, Habrosus, and then the little Kochu tetra. I really like probably Habrosus the best. I'm not sure. And then for full-sized quarries, I love the laser quarries. I really like flagtail pandas.
You've got a video on the orange lasers. Do you have one on the green as well?
Yeah, I've bred green as well. I used to breed those in my my zebra otocinclus tank. Cool.
I got another question from Long Island Fish Guy. Who's your favorite fish tank manufacturer and why?
I don't really think it makes that big of a difference. I don't tend to buy a lot of the really high-end aquariums, like the rimless, you know, low iron stuff. I find with most small tanks, that low iron stuff doesn't really make any difference. But I will say that if I were to ever purchase a large tank, I'm sure many of you, if you've watched my channel at all, have seen how like the big boys tank, my gar tank, looks green.
Yeah.
For an aquarium that size where the glass gets really thick, I would absolutely invest in something like that. But most of the major manufacturers that make aquariums will do that for you. I mean, I've heard good things about custom aquariums, but I haven't purchased an aquarium in over 10 years. So I just, you know, I have some kits like Fluval likes to send out to creators, various tanks. So I have some of those.
They do?
Yeah, sometimes. And, you know, I really like how Aqueon supports the hobby. And they have some pretty neat kits. They have a new one out that has like a slanted top so that you can have a top viewing as well as the front and the sides. I thought that was pretty innovative. But I don't really have a particular manufacturer that I'm attached to in any way.
I like to go with whatever I can find slightly used and go that route. It's much more affordable. Golden fish tanks. What plans do you have for the greenhouse in 2019? Now, I'm assuming he means you also collect carnivorous plants, right?
Yep, I have carnivorous plants and quite a succulent collection, and I really want to I really want to grow a lot more vegetables in the greenhouse last year. Last year was my first summer with the greenhouse, and I learned a lot about the reality of trying to maintain stable water temperatures out there.
Yeah.
It worked out really, really, really well in my lower bins, but my top bins were kind of a bust. So I think what I'm going to do is put the bins all around on the ground in the greenhouse, and then focus the upper level of the greenhouse on more orchids and violets, grow a bunch of vegetables, maybe do some hydroponics, and maybe if I can find a place in my house that's suitable to overwinter, get some nepenthes and things like that. It's really wide open, but I definitely want to focus more on raising food for my family, since
Cool.
especially since the top layer didn't work out well for my fish.
Sean's wondering, any quick advice on keeping shrimp? I got a few Blue Dream and they're dying off. pH is 6.8, but anything else I'm missing?
Just really make sure that that tank is totally cycled. Shrimp are absolutely intolerant to any levels of ammonia or nitrite. So you need to make sure it's a good mature tank. If you can't find anything visible, I would encourage you to pick up some of the polyfilter pad, which is a chemical media. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it at Dr. Foster's and Smith. And what that does is it changes color to show you what it's absorbing out. And it can be a really great troubleshooter, especially in a small tank or a shrimp tank where you're having things that are sort of unexplained. It can give you some clues, and it can also absorb these toxins out of the water before it's an issue for your tank.
So Rachel, you were a vet tech, just like my wife, before you started selling fish and getting into YouTube and all that. Do you miss that kind of work?
I do miss it. I really enjoyed working with animals. I really enjoyed working in the veterinary field. You learn something new every day. It was very hands-on. It was a very smart job. But I think I like to think that I apply a lot of that to what I'm doing now with what I do at my home. And that's, I think, sort of why I am a crazy fish lady, is that super curious mind just takes you in a big way all over things.
How many times have you been asked about starting a saltwater tank?
All the time.
We'll just leave it at that.
And I would like to, but here's the thing. Like I was just saying, I don't do things a little bit. I do things a lot, and I know that the corals are fascinating. I know that all those invertebrates are amazing, and I know that I could get really into sort of
It's its own hobby. It's its own hobby. It's a separate hobby in my opinion. It's so big, and so is freshwater.
My house is only so big. I don't have room for another fish room. So,
another question for you: do you have any recommendations on a good fish to start out with?
I like white clouds.
White cloud minnows?
Yep.
By the way, Aqua Apprentice YouTube app told me to take a break. How dare you? That's not me who set that. That's it just does that. Okay. I'm gonna skip the saltwater question. And I'm going to go down to...
I do think there's a big need for more relatable saltwater channels on YouTube, though.
Yeah, you don't see a ton of people that have both. Some do, obviously, but not everybody. Okay. A lot of folks are in here saying hi. I really appreciate everyone who's in here today. I'm trying to get to everyone's questions, and I'm sorry if I've missed some. What's your feeling on big chain stores like Petco and PetSmart?
Well, I think they're only as good as their employees, and it's really unfortunate that that employees aren't paid well enough that it's really a sustainable living for them to really invest themselves in the aquatics departments at those things. I mean, they're an inevitability. I talked about in a recent video how selling fish does not make you rich. You don't make a bunch of money on fish. So it's really, sort of sad that a lot of the mom and pop shops have closed down over the years. But the reality is with the changing times, the business model didn't change with it. And you really have to be able to embrace that in order to survive in this industry. So unfortunately, Petco and PetSmart and everything are what we've got. And there's really great ones and there's really crappy ones. But they basically get their fish the same place as everyone else. So it's not like the fish are bad. It just comes down to to the to how they're managed. And I really think it goes even further and comes down to the consumer. I mean, you're responsible for what you purchase. If you go in there and things don't look good, don't buy. Put your money where your mouth is.
That's a good tip. Actually, KG Tropicals was on here last week and talking about like when he met you the first time at AE, and there was only like 4 or 5 of you because there was only 4 or 5 fish tubers. Aquafunk is asking, what do you think about the explosion of fish tube channels in the last couple of years?
I think it's great. I think it's great that people want to share what they know. I think it's probably got to be frustrating to get traction. You know, I don't even know how you go about finding all these channels. You know, like it would be really nice if there was some sort of sort function that you could use, you know, where you could just view channels that are under that pet and animal parent, whatever description. But I mean, I think YouTube is a place for everybody. That's why it's there. So the more the merrier.
You've got a wide variety of fish that you have sold over time that's on your website. And then you have like your current stocking list. What's been some of your best sellers all time?
My all-time best seller of all time, always and forever, are Amano shrimp and Chile rasboras and Habrosus cories and pygmy cories. Yeah. Any of the small CPDs, the Celestichthes, margaritatus, the little, what's their common name? Galaxy Danio or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I really don't like that fish, but they're super popular. A lot of the micro rasboras. I mean, you know, I get so excited about all of them. I think it gets a bit infectious, and I haven't really had a bad seller.
That's good. I think a lot of people like you so much because of all the knowledge you have. It's not fake. It's not. You've done your research. Where do you do all your research? How do you get all your information?
I read a lot of books and magazines, and then I go down these rabbit holes of research where I get some sort of idea of something I want to find, and I'll just keep digging further through Google Scholar. Luckily, I have quite a few friends in academia who are willing to send me papers that I can only read the abstracts of otherwise. So I just sort of, I'll start with an area and try and figure out what fish are from there or what the area looks like. And that takes you to a different paper on something else. And I just follow the leads until I get the information that I need.
Tom from T&M Aquatics is asking, what's your favorite Pleco?
Right now?
You sell the L450.
I sell L450, 236, 173Bs, Ancestris, Clown Plecos. I have 397s.
What's a 173B?
It's a zebra type out of Brazil.
Oh, cool.
They're super rare. They're ones they sell for about $125 an inch. Wow,
that's up there.
Yeah.
So what would you say your favorite is?
My favorite, again, this is where it gets hard for me because there's like high Pancistris and Ancestris and Panoculus, and I like them all for very different reasons. Probably just your basic bristlenose Pleco, just because I think they are the one that is most well suited to the average hobbyist, the easiest to keep, the easiest to feed, and the most outgoing in behavior.
I've got a question here from, I like them too. They're also easy to breed. Well, they're the only ones I've...
easy. I just say you add water.
Yeah, I know. They're the only ones I've bred, but they're super easy. Okay, Jackson K. All my local fish store has a Facebook page, no website, phone number, or email. Being on the younger side of the crowd, he's asked me to help him out digitally. How do you recommend I start?
Start by spending time in the store and getting pictures of his current livestock, and then schedule posts. It's really easy on most social media to spend like an hour or two in a row and schedule a ton of posts. And what that'll do, and start using hashtags too. And what that'll do is it'll start providing more regular content for his store, which is what most of the platforms really reward. So if you can do it an hour a week for this guy, go in, shoot whatever fish he has, and then schedule a post or two to come out each day for him, it would probably really help.
I've got a question from N Nuclear Winter. What is the best way to calcium supplement snails? I have shrimp rocks and just got a liquid supplement coming in the mail, but I've never used one before. How do I correctly? I'm scared. It's a 10.
Well, with liquid calcium, you could just pour it directly into the aquarium, but I would recommend pouring it into the filter if it's like a hang-on back. You just want to be careful not to pour it directly onto the snails because it can burn them. The other thing some people will do would be to dose it into a little bit of tank water, dissolve it, dilute it rather, and then mix it in. I find the easiest way to supplement calcium is through foods, and that's because calcium is what's important for new shell growth. So making sure that that's ingested is really the best way, and it's super easy to make snail jello, which you just take a jar of like a green baby food. You can stir in a teaspoon of calcium powder, and then you can add in some fish foods or things like that and a packet of gelatin, and you microwave it and lay it out on a plastic tray, cut it into cubes, and you can keep it in your refrigerator or your freezer. Now, what's more important, I think, for snails, and that gets talked about a lot less, is the actual hardness of the water, the sort of the carbonate hardness, because that is what will degrade and erode the snail shell over time. So feeding calcium-rich foods is really great for thick, healthy new growth, but it's not going to help with maintaining the growth, the health, overall health of the shell over time. That's where you really need to make sure that you're keeping them in water that has at least moderate hardness.
I'm going to have to rewatch this stream so I can take in all these answers from some of these questions. That's crazy how much knowledge you have. I got a good question here from Jason, actually. If you had to move, and Jason's Fish Tropic, in case you're wondering. If you had to move and sold everything, would you do it again, Rachel?
Absolutely. I just do it differently and better. My fish room, everything that's in my fish room came from selling out of my fish room. So it started with a few tanks and some prefab racks or even just aquariums on stands. And then they just sort of spread around the basement. And then my husband started fabricating stands for me because he can weld. And, I've learned a lot over the past decade of running a fish room about what works and what doesn't. So if I had to do it over, I would do it differently, but I would absolutely do it.
Your husband's a welder? What kind of welding does he do?
MIG, TIG, stick, all of it.
I'm a sheet metal worker, so I do MIG and TIG as well.
Very cool. He's got a little, one of the little lunchbox millers.
Oh, yeah.
He uses for his TIG and stuff. And then we have a Miller MIG. And I actually had a big stick welder for a while, but that was also a generator.
I also have a sheet metal custom stand as well with stainless steel top.
Awesome.
KG Cichlids has got a question here. Is marine salt better to use than aquarium salt when a fish has a bacterial infection? If you have no meds like erythromycin, which is banned in certain places.
I actually like to use like kosher salt. I think that works great. I don't know a whole lot about marine salt. I would assume that it has more minerals. I'm not sure, osmotically speaking, if that would make a huge difference with freshwater fish or not. I really don't know, but I always use kosher salt from the grocery store because it's really cheap.
Yeah, I'm with you. I haven't done any marine salt. I use Epsom salt baths sometimes. I've done that to treat for swim bladder. But by the way, I see Otter Creek is back. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in here, and I will do my best to get them all. Matthew's got a question. Matthew Moore Cichlids. Who does your tattoos?
I have a few different artists. I started out, like a lot of my older ones, like my chest and some of the ones on my upper shoulders were done by a guy named Topper, who used to work at Eddie's Tattoo in Philadelphia. In recent years, I've been going to a shop called Northside Tattoos, who the owner is Matt Stankus, and he is absolutely incredible. And he's done, for instance, this mermaid. He's the one that just did my big back piece. He did my crayfish tattoo. I have also been tattooed by a guy named Mark Longnecker out of Cocoa Beach, Florida, and a guy named Adam Lenhart out of Golden Ages Tattoo in Lancaster, PA.
You got the nickname the Fish Pimp. Is that something that you gave to yourself, or did somebody stick you with that? Can we see those knuckles again?
I thought it was, I was there getting, I don't remember which tattoo I was there getting. I was there getting tattooed, and I was like, wouldn't it be funny if I got Fish Pimp on my knuckles? You know, because knuckle tattoos, when you have as many tattoos as I do, are just sort of something you do. And we all thought it was so hilarious, so we just did it. I didn't ever expect it to be to become what it's become.
Dansley, another question. Out of all the species you breed, inverts and fish, which one have you spent the most time, effort improving the line breeding, selecting for specific traits, if any? I know you aren't into morphs.
Well, I mean, I do work with some morphs. I do work with color forms of Ancestris. Most time would be my wild bee shrimp and my cherry shrimp, because both of those I've had for almost 15 years at this point. Most calling, or most like having to sort through and work on reinforcing genetics, probably, like, you figure 10 years, or yeah, about 10 years ago, blue shrimp weren't a thing on the market.
Yeah.
But you could breed out red Rilly, and every once in a while you get a red Rilly with a blue body. And I spent years working on that. Oh, and I had isolated out a blue Cambarellus, little dwarf crayfish. It was a CPO, it was a Schuffeltii species. I had spent a lot of time turning that one from light gray to a crystal blue before they got banned in my state, and I had to stop working with them.
What do you do with the culls?
They go to live in a 75-gallon tank where they get to live their life.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Or I'll sell them for like $1 a piece or whatever to someone who promises they're not going to like breed them and pass them off as
Rachel O'Leary's shrimp.
Pure.
Right.
Well, I mean, the thing is I'll mix all the different color forms and species. So they're not ones that they're fine for like pet shrimp, but they shouldn't really be sold or passed off as a color form when their genetics are all over the place.
Best South American blackwater nanofish besides green neons?
Axelrod irisae, the ruby tetra.
Otter Creek Aquatics has a question. What is a challenging species you can breed in a 10-gallon, trying to expand outside of guppies and endlers?
I wrote a whole book about that.
So your book was up to 20-gallon, right? In your book it says you consider nano up to 20-gallon, right?
That was a bone of contention with the editor, and that's because that book was the complement to the saltwater book. And in saltwater, 20 gallons is commonly considered a nano.
Right.
And they wanted uniformity between the books. And I was really irritated by that, because a 20-gallon tank is not a nano tank.
Okay.
In my mind, it's 10 gallons or less. But then again, I also like to say I have 75-gallon nano tanks because the community is small fish. So.
My nano is 29-gallon, but I have all nano fish in there. So,
you know, I guess it depends on if you're looking at the size of the fish or the size of the aquarium and how you define what you're doing. But as far as for a 10-gallon tank, I mean, I could talk for 4 or 5 hours and rattle off species. I would really encourage you to, I mean, this sounds terrible and I'm sorry for the shameless self-promotion, but look through some of my species spotlights, because the vast majority of the fish that I have featured over the past 3 years are appropriate for a 10-gallon. You might find something that tickles your fancy.
Would you try and breed Epistos in a 10-gallon?
I don't like to breed Epistos in a 10. I've done it. But what I find is that after, unless you're going to pull the parents or pull the fry, the fry always get killed as soon as they're food seeking, just because the parents want to spawn again. So I haven't had the best luck with keeping them in really small aquariums to rear. You can certainly do it, but again, you would want to be able to pull the fry or pull the parents to raise the babies.
What size tank would you recommend for Epistos?
I like a 20-gallon.
20-gallon to breed them in?
Yeah, I do. Or 15 is actually even okay. I mean, people do it in 10s all the time. And,
Yeah.
and with a lot of the domestic types, things like the cockatoides, you know, or the stuff that's been being line bred forever, they do fine in a 10-gallon. But if you get any of the wild species, it can be a bloodbath.
I think I have fallen behind in the chat a little because oh, here we go. I got a good question here from Jeff Rowe. Rachel, in regards to your shipping, what's the longest one of your livestock packages was out before arrival and a live outcome?
12 days.
And it lived?
Yeah.
Wow. Have you had a lot of problems shipping fish?
No, because I am a known live shipper through FedEx, and because of that, I really like FedEx. UPS is also fine, but when I switched from the USPS to FedEx, the tracking gets real, and because I'm a known live shipper, I can make claims against the fish, and because of that, they're very good about packages being delivered in a timely fashion. They also make it very easy if people live in outlying areas to have packages held at hubs for them to pick up. So I really have very few issues. I mean, sometimes things happen, like, I mean, sometimes packages get lost. I can count on 2 hands the amount of packages that have been lost or late since I switched to FedEx about 8 years ago, I think.
I've got a question from Aqua Apprentice, hoping to get started on my own fish room soon. What central air pump would you recommend, also considering it needs to be quiet?
Well, good luck with that one. I would really, depending on where you're setting up your space, if you really need it to be quiet, consider putting it in a room that it doesn't need to be quiet and then running your central loop from that room into your fish area. But the reality is if you're using an air-driven pump, you're probably using sponge filters, which are not quiet. Now, you could do Matin filters, which would be a lot quieter, but it's a lot bigger financial output from the beginning. I mean, it pays off in the long run, and I wish I would have done that. As far as what pump, I would encourage you to go to a company like Jehmco, JEHMCO.com. The people that run that it's an older couple. They've been doing it forever, and you can tell them the size of your room and the amount of the aquariums and the headspace that you need to be able to drive air, and they can give you the best recommendation for pumps in customer support. Now, they don't have the most modern website or anything, but if you email them, they will get back to you, and they actually have a phone number where a human answers that you can call and talk to them. But that's where I buy all my air supplies. In my fish room, I use an Alita AL80, which is fine, but I mean, it's not quiet. You guys have heard my videos.
I'd just like to say thank you to all the people that are pointing out Late Night with Fish Fallon. I appreciate the nickname. I also want to say,
is that what that is?
Yeah, I get called the Jimmy Fallon of fish tubers, which I appreciate that. Jadrin Aquatics is in here. If you haven't got your Fish Fam calendar yet, go over to Jadrin Aquatics channel and take a look there. He'll set you up on how you can buy one from him. I had another question here. Can I have a Mexican dwarf crayfish in the bottom of my 10-gallon?
Sure.
There you go. Sure you can. A lot of people are saying a lot of nice things about you, Rachel, as I'm going through this chat.
Oh, I see Alex is here. Tank tested. Hi, Alex.
Okay, let me just see here. I've fallen way behind in the chat, and I apologize. Liz says, and we were talking about this off.
Guys. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just mentioning one fish, two fish. Liz, every time I consider a new fish, I go to her species spotlights. It's the first place I check. And I was telling Rachel, that's actually how I first found her, was when she was first starting out, because I was Googling things about fish and her videos kept popping out. And ever since those species spotlights, which I think you used to do them on Sundays all the time, right?
Yes.
And I was watching them like clockwork. Those were my favorite videos. And Rachel was saying that they don't do so well for her.
Oh, they get the worst views of any videos I put out on my channel, but I love them. And I haven't done any in a while because I haven't been getting in new fish, and I've already done every single fish in my fish room, I think. I have to sort of take inventory and really see if that's true. And some of the fish I have, I'm waiting for them to get to maturity so that you can actually see what they're supposed to look like, not what they look like now. But once I'm back in action getting fish in, then I'll start doing my spotlights again.
I just want to apologize to Raccoon Creek Aquatics, who I see on here. I didn't notice that you were doing a live stream at the same time until about an hour before I came on today. So I apologize. I'm not normally in this time slot. I'm usually 3 hours later, but we had to make things work today. So I apologize if I railroaded you a little there. Just My Fish is asking, Rachel, did you ever get the calves? Last time we spoke, you were after some.
Calvus, no, I got compressiceps instead.
Calvus.
They're pretty, they spelled it calves. I got Altalamprologus compressiceps, species Sumbu shell. I still would like to get some calvus. I would still like to get some Juliodachromis. Again, the list of fish that I want is absolutely absurd. So all in time, I guess.
I have a 2-inch Geophagus that paired off and spawned. This is my first having fish spawn. Any advice?
I actually, I'm sorry. I haven't worked with many geos. You know who does, though, I think, is Mike from Mass. Generally speaking, I would recommend with most cichlids that once the fry are food seeking, you pull the fry or pull the parents to raise the babies. You know, but I haven't worked with a lot of geos that size fish. 2 inches is small for them to spawn. But that size fish is just not part of my normal wheelhouse of what I work with.
How do you feel about shell dwellers?
I love shellies. I have 2 75-gallon tanks built around them.
Somebody's saying here that the species spotlight's what got him interested in Maltese many months ago, and now has a whole colony going. So there you go.
That's awesome. And I see that Alex asked if I do species spotlights on plants. I have done some species spotlights on plants, but I think it's really important to mention that I have incredible success with plants and it doesn't make any sense because I don't dose any fertilizers. I don't use CO2. I just use shop lights. I do use good substrates in some aquariums, but I think that my tap water is like magic or something, or it has high natural CO2 levels or something, because I grow all sorts of plants that I shouldn't be able to. And one of the reasons I haven't really gone hard into doing plant spotlights is that I feel like even more than with fish, there's a strong learning curve there, and your mileage will vary greatly as to what works. And I would hate to have people invest a lot of money into plants that do well for me, only for them to do poorly for them when they try and mimic my conditions.
Do you use CO2?
No.
Do you use like medium or highlight, or you just kind of do
Nope. All low light, all low tech, no fertilizers, no CO2, nothing, and I grow the crap out of some plants.
That's awesome. I'm not a CO2 user myself, mostly because of cost. But and I do use fertilizer, not all the time. They just they don't die without fertilizer. But if I start pumping fertilizer in there, it just takes off like crazy. Petsotic says that he met you at AE in 2014.
Oh, cool. That was the first year I went. That was when we did the big nature aquarium with all the manzanita, I think. It was either 2014 or 2015.
14.
Yeah.
Kevin Rosenberg, first time having a Pistogrammy cockatoides, wild caught in a 20 long blackwater. They're pretty small. When will I be able to tell if one is a female? I know I have one male, other one is small.
You can usually tell by the time they're an inch easily. Keep an eye. The female, even at a small size, will start to turn yellow pretty much as soon as the males start showing some sexual disparity.
I've had trouble before in the past with getting the false male, like
sneaker males.
Yeah, I think I'm buying a pair, and then it turns out I've got a couple of boys.
I find that you can tell by the pectoral fins of the females being blacker from a very small size.
Well, now we're kind of gone off a little bit on Jadron Aquatics rap video. I'm not sure if you caught that one, Rachel.
No, I was wondering what that was about. I was like,
yeah, that was from 2 days ago, maybe. He It's something.
I have some catching up to do, I guess.
Definitely check that one out. Hello, Priscilla. Well, we've been here for an hour. I've gone through my questions. I've gone through the chat's questions, but I am going to give the chat another chance here. If anybody else has a question, if Rachel's okay with one or two more before we call it a night. So if somebody else has a question, no problem. We'll get that up for you. Awesome. So what do you have plans, Rachel, to like what do you have like goals for 2019 for your YouTube channel? Like what do you want your subscriber count to be in 12 months?
10 million subs. No.
That's not bad.
I don't know. I just like to see consistent growth. I feel like my channel isn't really growing that quickly right now. And I'm not sure why. But, you know, it's doubled each year that I've done it. So as long as that trend can continue, I'll be really happy. And what I'm really proud of is the engagement on my channel. I mean, I really feel like my subscribers that watch are involved, invested, and listening. And I want to continue to nurture that. But I don't have a particular goal set yet. Usually towards the end of the year, I sit down and look at all my analytics and compare trends and see what's working and what's not and come up with an unrealistic goal for myself. I missed my goal this year.
What was your goal?
I was real close. I wanted to hit 100,000 by the time my 3-year anniversary came around, but I didn't plan to miss, 6 weeks of videos in the middle of summer. So I think that kind of it knocked me off the algorithm, and it's been a slow climb back onto it. So
that's but 25,000 in your first year, 50,000 after 2, and
100,000
after 3. That's awesome. Okay, what is your dream fish? E-Money Cichlids is wondering.
Oh, I would love to have a big Australian lungfish.
Anything you would change that you? Lee Clark is asking. Anything you would change that you have done in your hobby?
I'm really proud of the sort of role I have in this hobby. I worked really, really, really hard to get speaking and writing, especially as a woman. So as far as that aspect, I wouldn't change a thing. As far as, some of the sacrifices we've made as a family for me to do it, I'd change some of that. Like we haven't had a family vacation except for one in 10 years that wasn't somehow based around a fish trip. Right. I'd like to do more, or I would like to change that going forward. But I'm pretty proud of what I've done in this hobby. I think I've done a really great job, and I really enjoy learning and continuing to learn and sharing what I'm learning. And I just hope that never changes. Lime
Boy Fish is asking, can people buy fish and pick up if they live in your area? I believe Absolutely. Your website says by appointment you can, and you can even tour your fish room. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. People are always welcome. We just have to set up an appointment. My schedule is insane. I do a minimum of 4 trips a day to the school for my kids and various, extracurriculars and travel and everything else. So we just need to set up an appointment, and then I'm happy to have people over.
How's your daughter's diving doing? Corey Boy Aquatics.
She's crushing it. She has her next meet tomorrow. So wish her luck for that. She's crushing it. She's having a good season.
Priscilla's asking if you're going to Aquashella, and I know you've already answered all the questions about your travel schedule for next year.
Yeah, they didn't have the budget to fly me out, and I don't have the budget to fly me out. So I think I'm probably going to have to miss it unless something magical happens between now and then.
Okay, let's see. I think we got one more here. My male silver trios are terrifying everyone, but only attacking the smaller female silver tips. I'm not
How
sure.
many males to females? I would recommend upping the school. Silver tip tetras.
I'm not sure. I guess so.
They said that their next tank will be turtle. That's really funny.
Rachel, I just want to say thank you so much. This was so fun having you on, and getting a chance to talk to you before we went on air here. That was so much fun. It was great to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much to the mods for all the work you did on this channel. And thanks for everyone who's stopping by and watching. It was a great time. We're going to be back on our regular time next Wednesday. We've got Palmer Aquatics on with us. Rachel, anything else you wanted to add?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. I'll have to make sure I stop back in. It's a little late for me, and I really appreciate you being flexible with the time for me and for everyone coming out to spend time with us. I really enjoy doing this, and I appreciate you having me on.
Well, thanks very much, guys. And once again, we will see you next week for another edition of Friday Fish Facts.